a small sunlit town wrapped between green hills, there lived a woman named Maya Ross. Everyone knew her not because she was rich or famous or chasing attention, but because she was the one who never said no. If someone's car broke down, Maya showed up with jumper cables and coffee. If a neighbor caught the flu, she'd cook soup, clean their porch, and still bring flowers. If a friend's heart got broken, she'd stay up till sunrise, whispering, "Hey, it's gonna be okay, babe. You got this." People always said, "Maya's a blessing. She's built different." And maybe she was. But no one ever saw what happened when her front door closed. Inside, her house was too quiet. Dinner sat cold on the table. Candles melted down to nothing. And she'd just sit there scrolling through old photos, faces she once helped, lives she'd touched, all while forgetting her own. She gave everything she had to the world, and somehow forgot to save even a little for herself. Every morning, before the sun was up, Maya watered her plants, fed a stray cat that had kind of adopted her, and drove to Willow Creek Elementary, where she taught 3rd grade. The kids adored her. They'd yell, "Miss Ross, Miss Ross," and tackle her with hugs that nearly knocked her off her feet. She'd laugh, smile that warm but tired smile, and say, "All right, kiddos, let's make some magic today." But every night when she came home, that smile disappeared. There was an empty chair across from her at dinner. No partner, no family, no one to ask, "How was your day?" Just silence. The kind of silence that has a weight. And sometimes she'd whisper to herself, "Maybe this is just how it's supposed to be. Maybe I'm meant to take care of others." Then came that one rainy Tuesday. Classes were over. Most teachers had gone home. But Maya stayed late painting signs, blowing balloons, preparing for the spring fair. She hadn't eaten lunch. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion. "Come on, Ross," she muttered. "You're fine. Just one more thing to finish." But her body had other plans. The room tilted, colors blurred, then black. When she opened her eyes again, the world looked strange. White ceiling, humming lights, IV in her wrist. She was in a hospital. A nurse smiled softly. "Hey there, sleepyhead, you fainted at school." Maya blinked. "What? I'm fine. No," the nurse interrupted gently. "You're not fine. You're exhausted." Moments later, a doctor walked in, gray hair, kind eyes, calm voice. He looked at her chart and said, "Miss Ross, your body needs rest, and honestly, your heart does too." Maya gave a weak laugh. "Guess I just need more coffee." He smiled back. "No, Miss Ross, you need boundaries." That word hit harder than any diagnosis. Boundaries. It felt wrong, selfish even, like something she wasn't allowed to have. That night, lying awake in that hospital bed, she replayed his words over and over. "You can't keep giving from an empty cup." And for the first time in years, she cried. Not for anyone else's pain, but for her own. The next morning, a nurse brought her a small wildflower in a paper cup. "One of your students dropped this off," she said. "Little guy named Eli Parker." Maya smiled faintly. Eli, the quiet kid in the back row, always sketching. She remembered him once saying, "Miss Ross, you always look tired, but your eyes are kind." A few hours later, Eli and his mom came by. He held a handmade card that said, "Get well soon, Miss R." "Mom says," he mumbled shyly, "you gotta take care of yourself too, like you take care of everyone else." That line from a 7-year-old hit deeper than anything the doctor said. She smiled through tears. "You're right, Eli, I really do." When they left, Maya stared at that tiny yellow daisy in its paper cup. It wasn't perfect, but somehow it felt like sunlight had finally found its way back into her chest. And that night, something changed. Something small, but powerful. Maybe it was time to stop being the world for everyone else and start being someone for herself. The empty chair. A week later, Maya came home. The sky was painted gold and pink. The air smelled like rain. Everything looked the same. Her porch, her plants, that little cat waiting by the steps. But somehow she wasn't the same. When she opened her front door, the silence wrapped around her again. The same empty chair, the same quiet room. But this time, she didn't feel lonely. She just felt still like peace had finally moved in. She dropped her hospital bag, smiled softly, and whispered, "Welcome back, Maya. Don't forget yourself again." That night, she didn't check her phone, didn't reply to everyone's texts, didn't grade papers. She just made a cup of chamomile tea, opened her window, and listened to the crickets and her own heartbeat. No guilt, no rush, just being. The next morning, she started a new ritual. She woke up 30 minutes early, not to work, but to live. She drank her coffee while it was still hot. She wrote in her journal, "Today I'll say no if I need to. Today I'll give myself permission to rest." At first, it felt weird, almost rebellious. But slowly, day by day, it became her favorite part of the morning. She even started painting again. Her brushes were dusty, paints half dry, but she didn't care. Her first piece was messy as sunset over a lake. But it was hers. Alive, imperfect, beautiful. At school, her students noticed. "Miss Ross, you look happy today." One little girl giggled. Maya laughed. "Do I? Maybe I finally slept." But inside she knew it wasn't sleep, it was peace. When coworkers asked her to take on extra work, she smiled and said, "Sorry, I can't right now, but maybe later." At first, people were shocked. Maya Ross said no. But soon they saw it too. Her laugh was louder, her eyes brighter. She wasn't running on fumes anymore. She was glowing. One evening, her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Turner, said, "You look different, sweetheart. What happened?" Maya smiled. "Yeah, I finally started being kind to myself." Mrs. Turner chuckled. "About time." Weeks passed, then months. And the seasons changed just like Maya. She still cared deeply, but she didn't bleed for everyone anymore. Her care came from balance, not burnout. On weekends, she'd sit by the lake with a book, sometimes painting, sometimes just watching the sunlight dance on the water. Life had slowed down just enough for her to hear her own soul again. Then one Saturday, a small knock on her door. It was Eli, taller now, missing a front tooth, still grinning big. "Miss Ross, look what I made." He held out a tiny wooden carving of a chair, her initials etched on the back. She laughed. "That's adorable, Eli. What's it for?" "It's your rest chair," he said, "so you never forget to take a break." Her throat tightened. She kneeled down and hugged him. "You remember that?" "Of course," he smiled. "You told us we can't pour from an empty cup. So this is to remind you." She whispered, "Thank you, buddy. I'll never forget again." That evening, she placed the tiny chair on her dining table, right next to the real one that always stayed empty. She looked at both and smiled. "That seat's for me," she whispered. "For the version of me that needs rest, peace, and love." And for the first time in forever, she felt whole, not because she had everyone, but because she finally had herself. Months later, people said Maya had changed. Some thought she'd grown distant. Others said she seemed calmer. But those who truly knew her could see it. She still helped people. She just didn't lose herself doing it. She listened, but didn't carry everyone's pain. She cared, but didn't forget to breathe. Her life had become like a candle, steady, bright, gentle. And that quiet balance spoke louder than any words ever could. One night, after a long day, Maya stood by the window. The moon hung high. The world was asleep. The cat jumped onto her lap, purring softly. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "You did it, Maya. You learned to love the one person who needed it most you." Outside, a wind chime sang in the breeze. And she smiled, finally understanding something simple but eternal. You can't heal others if you never let yourself heal. You can't light the world if your own flame is dying. And you can love truly until you love yourself first. So if you're hearing this right now, maybe you're a little like Maya. Maybe you say yes when your heart whispers no. Maybe you care for everyone but yourself. But listen, you deserve rest. You deserve peace. You deserve your own love. Because the world doesn't need your exhaustion, it needs your light. And that is the story of Maya Ross, the woman who once forgot herself and then remembered that she was worthy of love too.